Hello and thanks for coming to check this out. For this guide we're going to have a look at rigging by using the mix slider of link behaviors. It's really useful and it can help you to open up more options, give yourself more choices than what you might think are available to you at the time. And we're going to look at two specific examples of that. But to explain it first, I'm just going to use this very simple and basic example here. So I have this square and we have this pop-up menu with three settings: off, left and right. So if I choose left, it will start rotating to the left. Right, it'll change direction, and then off. So the first thing to note, if I come and grab this square, note that there's just two links on it. And let's come to geometry. Let's change the color, the width. Okay, now we'll go to geometry and change the roundness, even the size. And we'll come back to the settings, and you can see that every change we made has been passed through to the selection. Right, so before we look at it entirely and go through step by step, let's go and have a look at another method first of all, so I can make it clear exactly what the benefits are of what we're about to do. In this project I have the same situation. I have the pop-up with three choices, so playing through we get the same options. So you see that it's labeled rig by opacity. So what I've done here is the standard rigging of opacity to a pop-up widget. So let's have a look at that. Each group, you can see the opacity is rigged to this widget here. In this group, the rectangle's rotating left, in this group it's rotating right, in this group it's not rotating at all. Look at all these links here. Okay, so this pop-up works by turning off 2 out of 3 groups at any given time. So right now it's set to right, so you can see that left and none are not visible, and we can only see the right. If we change it, you can see that only left is visible. Left opacity is at 100 and right and none are at 0. And so that's what creates this option. If you already know rigs really well, you'd be looking at this rate behavior here and you'd be thinking, well, hang on, why don't you just rig the rate behavior to the pop-up menu? Yeah, you can do that, but as I said, I'm just using this as a very simple, basic example to explain something else, so please don't get hung up on that. Anyway, so we've got the rate behaviors driving the rotation and opacity is driving the selections here. But look at all these links. So what's going on here is that I need something to publish parameters, and I've chosen the static square with no animation at all. So if I want to publish width and color and say roundness, well, as we saw before, if I want those changes to be passed through to every selection, I have to rig every parameter. And so this is just a very basic example with 3 options. You can see how many links are involved already. So you can imagine that the more options you want, the more selections you want in your template, the more links you have to bring in, and you will end up spending a lot of time doing link wrangling, link maintenance. You can't forget to remove or add a link to a group. There's a lot of attention. So this is one of the benefits of using the method that we're going to go back and look at now. So yeah, let's go back and look at how to do rig selections without needing all these links and without depending on the opacity style of rig. Okay, back in the original project, let's go through this step by step. So you can see in this group here, I've called it null. There are two shapes. One of them is animated with a rate behavior at 360, and that's rotating it left. The other one is animated with a rate behavior minus 360, which is animating it right. And as I mentioned before, yes, if we just wanted to make a rotation selection, we could just add this value to a rig and that would be enough. But we're just doing this basic example so that we can explore something else. Anyway, so I've got my rounded square here. I've got these two objects, call them null objects. And by the way, these don't have to be the same shape as this shape. Could be squares, rectangles, it could be just a group. It's the parameters that are important. So in this case, that important parameter is rotation. So we're going to grab rounded square, and I'm going to come to properties, to Z rotation, and I'm going to add a link. And for the source, I'm going to use rotate left, and I'm going to call that Z to left. And this custom mix slider, I'm just going to drag that down to, well, if I leave it on, you'll see the animation is kicking in. So this is acting on the Z rotation of this object through the link. If we drop this custom mix down to 0, we've turned off the link, so the animation stops. I'm going to duplicate this link and call it Z to right. And I'm going to drag in rotate right as the source. And let's turn that custom mix up to 1. So now it's animating to the right. And if I turn off this mix and turn that mix back on, now it's animating to the left. So what we want to do is create a switchboard to turn these mixes on and off so that they alternate, and we'll do that by adding it to a pop-up. So I'm going to grab the custom mix and choose add to rig, new pop-up. I'll name the rig and name the widget. And by default we've got 3 choices. If you want more, you can just add them or minus them. So I want to rename this first option as off. Going to rename the next option as left and rename the next option as right. So we've already added the right link, so let's grab that left link and let's go add to rig, rotation. So here's my pop-ups. So with the setting it off, I want them both at 0. With the setting it left, I want left at 1 and right at 0, and with the setting to right, I want left at 0 and right at 1. So now our selection menu is done. And keeping in mind from what we saw before, I don't have to link the parameters of my visible shape to any other layer or any other object at all. I can go ahead and work through my project, publish one set of parameters, and if I want to change things around, make changes, I don't have to worry about adding links and minusing links. And another benefit, small benefit, is that your layers are going to, well, they're always going to end up becoming super long, but they'll be less and less super long. Okay, so that is the basic setup for rigging the custom mix slider to pop-up. to make selections of different things. Later on we'll look at adding, well, I think you can see that the more things you add to the pop-up, the longer this list is going to get. So when your templates get more complex, we'll look at adding the links to checkboxes and making switches with checkboxes first, and then adding those to a pop-up widget instead. That's something we'll do a few guides away. Okay, so that's that. Let's go now and have a look at a couple of good examples of how this can help you further. In this first example, we're using exactly the same method, the same steps. We're using it on text object with sequence text applied. So this is I'll turn off the nulls. This is the visible text. Here's the sequence text behavior for it, and you can see, well, if you can see here, these parameters for the sequence text behavior have no natural values. All the values come from the link. So we have the pop-up, the selection to either overshoot the Y position or overshoot scale. So we can swap between these, and this is a situation, this is one example of where you just really couldn't do it as easily using the opacity method that we saw earlier on. And the reason is that you cannot link font from text to text in motion, and if there's a way, I have still not learned it, and from all the questions I've asked in forums, I've still not had the answer back. So you can link pretty much everything. Well, not that. Okay, you can link these parameters. You can link tracking. You can link appearance, color. You can link all of these things to other text objects to make an opacity pop-up like we saw before. But you can't link the font. It's unlinkable. You can rig it, and that limit, depending on what you want to do, that might be good or might not be, but you need to go through then and create the rig with all the fonts that you want to make available to the editor. But you know, if you want to make every single font available, that's going to take a lot of time. So what we've done here is we have just used the same method. I have an overshoot scale sequence text here, and I have an overshoot Y sequence text here. The visible sequence text is linked to these sequence texts, and the mix sliders are rigged to this menu here. So I don't have to worry at all about linking the font. I don't have to make any compromise. The visible text has the full font menu available to it, which is a good thing if that's something that you want to do. So I think you can see one of the big benefits of using that method already just from this example. Okay, let's go and have a look at another use. So for this example, we'll look at using that method to get around some limitations with the write-on behavior. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, you'll see we don't even need the write-on behavior anymore. But this is a good illustration again of why using the mix sliders rigged to widgets is much better than going for the opacity method. Alrighty, so I have a circle here, and I just have this write-on behavior. And the first thing to note is that with the write-on behavior, because what we want to look at here is providing a choice of speeds for the animation. So the write-on behavior has this speed function here with all of these choices, and you can publish that. So yes, you can give the user of your template lots of choices for speed. Okay, but first point, you might want to do something different. And the second point, the most important point, is that if you're going to use the draw and erase behavior, note that there's no delay between draw and erase. So if you want to have a different speed animation than the default options, and if you want to be able to create a pause between draw and erase, well, then you need to use the custom speed function here. And if it's set to custom speed, well, then publishing these is no longer a sensible thing to do. So let's look at draw and erase. So what we want to do is come to, what's this? Let's make it 2 seconds long. Oh no, it's fine as it is. Right, so you see that with custom speed. Okay, first of all, let's look at this curve here. I did a couple of write-on behavior guides before, but we'll point this out again. If I have speed set to anything else, I can make changes in here, but it won't have any effect at all on the animation. None at all. But if we are set to custom, then this is driving the animation. So if you want to be able to, and basically what we're doing here is through the write-on behavior, we're just keyframing normally now. Well, that's the way I see it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a pause between the draw and erase. So I'll come to here and set this at 50, which is all the way. And I'll come to here and set that at 50 to hold it there at 50. I want to flatten that out. We don't want any action between that point and that point. So it comes to full draw, 50%, holds for a few frames, and now from here to here, yeah, we're animating up to 100. So that's how you add a pause with draw and erase. But as we saw before, it gets rid of your options for publishing the speeds because it just doesn't make sense to do that anymore. So we can use our method that we've learned to create our own speed menu, and we'll look at how to do that now. Okay, so we are using exactly the same method as before, but for this what I've done is I have the shapes with the write-on behavior now as null, so I've got one for a speed 2 and one for speed 1, and I have linked the last and first point offsets of the visible circle to these null objects instead. So each write-on has a different speed for the draw and erase. You can see here's the speed curve for speed 2, and for speed 1 a little different. So then, okay, this should make the difference in speeds a bit more visible to you. So then I have, yeah, cool. Got the first point and last point offset here. One set of links to speed 1, one set of links to speed 2, and again we've put the custom of the links, we've put the mix slider. It says custom mix here, by the way, because it's set to custom mix, so That's why I always have it in my head that it's called the custom mix slider, but I think it's just called the mix slider. So the mix sliders have gone onto this pop-up, and just as we did before, at one speed, one set of sliders are at 0, and for the other speed, the other set of sliders are at 0, so they alternate. So we can swap between speeds, and so with a little bit of effort, you can reproduce the speeds available that you've kind of sacrificed by choosing custom. You can reproduce ease in, ease out, accelerate, all of those, and all your other custom speeds that you want to do. So again, yes, you could do this through the opacity method instead, but then again, you would have to be creating links, a set of links for all the parameters that you want to publish for every single opacity option that you have. And so again, this is just a more efficient way to go about it. Okay, thanks for checking this out. I hope it's going to be useful for you in your future projects, and thanks for watching.